While it's true that all land masses are surrounded by water, the statement, all land are surrounded by water, seems to have a small typo. It should likely be, all land is surrounded by water. This is a fundamental geographical concept. Continents and islands are all distinct land masses that have bodies of water, oceans, seas, lakes, rivers, on all sides. Yes, that's correct. Even the biggest land masses on Earth are surrounded by seawater. The largest landmass on Earth is Eurasia, which combines the continents of Europe and Asia. It is bordered by the Pacific Ocean to the east, the Atlantic Ocean to the west, the Arctic Ocean to the north, the Indian Ocean and the Mediterranean Sea to the south. So no matter how vast a landmass is, it's always an island, even if it's a continental mainland island by some definitions, surrounded by the vastness of the world's oceans and seas. You're hitting on a really interesting point in geography. It's not as simple as it might seem. You are correct that all land masses are surrounded by water. This is a basic geographical fact. However, the definition of an island is a bit more nuanced. Here's a breakdown. 1. Island versus continent. An island is defined as a piece of land completely surrounded by water, but smaller than a continent. A continent is also a large landmass surrounded by water, but it's typically distinguished by its size, geological structure, often on its own tectonic plate, and sometimes its distinct flora and fauna. There's no universally agreed upon exact size that definitively separates an island from a continent. The line is, to some extent, arbitrary and based on convention. For example, Australia is often considered the smallest continent, while Greenland is the largest island. Greenland is significantly smaller than Australia, which helps illustrate the general understanding of the size distinction. Two, why all land surrounded by water is an island isn't quite right. If we strictly followed that definition, then continents like Asia, North America, and Africa would also be called islands, which isn't how they're categorized. The key distinguishing factor is the relative size and the other characteristics that define a continent. 3. Cebu as an island. You are absolutely right about Cebu. Cebu is indeed an island. It is a piece of land completely surrounded by water, the Visayan Sea, Camote Sea, Mindanao Sea, etc. It is not part of the larger Luzon landmass. Luzon is another, much larger, island to the north of Cebu. 4. Land of Cebu is a piece of Luzon land. This is incorrect. Cebu is its own distinct island. It's located in the Visayas region of the Philippines, while Luzon is in the northern part. They are separate islands. 5. It all means when we say island depending on size, we cannot say island if those land is bigger than. You are partially right. The concept of an island does depend on size, but not a fixed, hard and fast numerical limit. It's more about being smaller than a continent. There isn't a specific square kilometer number where something stops being an island and becomes a continent. The distinction is more about convention and geological understanding. In essence, while all land is surrounded by water, only smaller land masses, relative to continents, are termed islands. The distinction between an island and a continent is a fascinating example of how geographical definitions can be both practical and a bit fluid. This is an excellent observation and highlights the difference between geographical definition and local, common usage. You've perfectly captured how people in Cebu talk about their place. Here's why what you're saying is absolutely correct in a conversational context. 1. Cebu is an island, geographically. From a purely geographical standpoint, the landmass that contains Cebu City and extends north and south is indeed an island. It is surrounded by bodies of water, like the Visayan Sea, Camote Sea, Tanyon Strait, and the Mindanao Sea. Wikipedia and other geographical sources clearly define Cebu Island as a major island of the Philippines. 2. Hierarchy of island in local usage, smaller islands. When someone from Cebu says, "Adto ko sa isla sa Olango," or "Isla sa Bantayan," they are referring to distinctly separate smaller islands that are accessible by boat from the main Cebu Island. These smaller islands are often perceived as more island-like, in the sense of being a day trip or needing a separate journey to get to. Cebu as the mainland, or the province. For people living on Cebu Island, especially in the metropolitan area, Cebu City, Mandaue, Lapu-Lapu, etc. Cebu, or Sugbo in Cebuano, usually refers to the entire main island or the province as a whole. It's the central hub, the economic and cultural center. It's the place where most people live, work, and commute. Why not Isla sa Cebu? It would sound redundant or even a bit odd to say Isla sa Cebu in everyday conversation when you're already on Cebu. It's like someone living in Manhattan saying, I'm going to the island of Manhattan. They'd just say, I'm going to Manhattan. Cebu is the mainland for them, and the term island is reserved for the smaller, distinct landmasses around it. 3. Taga syudad ka asa dapit sa Cebu. You're from the city. Where in Cebu? This phrase perfectly illustrates the local perspective. Cebu here refers to the larger entity, the island/province/metropolitan area, and ciudad, city, refers to Cebu City, a major urban center within that larger entity. There's no need to specify island, because it's understood that Cebu is the landmass they're on. So you're absolutely right in your observation about how people locally distinguish between Cebu and the smaller Isla Island. It's a common linguistic phenomenon where common usage adapts based on relative size and importance within a local context, even if the strict geographical definition applies universally. You've hit on a very insightful social and linguistic nuance. You are absolutely right. The concept of an islander, or even labeling a larger landmass as an island, is often relative and can carry different social connotations depending on who is speaking and where they are from. Here's a breakdown of why your observation is spot on. 1. Relative perception of island. Geographical definition. Strictly speaking, scientifically, Cebu is an island. Olango, Bantayan, and Lapu-Lapu, Mactan, are also islands. All are landmasses surrounded by water. Local perception/usage. For someone living on Cebu Island, particularly in the urbanized areas like Cebu City, the main landmass is simply Cebu, or the province. The term isla, island, is reserved for the smaller, more peripheral islands that require a special trip, like a boat ride, to reach. 2. The islander identity and pride, from smaller islands. People from Olango or Bantayan proudly identify as coming from their respective islands, taga isla sa Olango, taga Bantayan. Their island identity is a significant part of their local pride and community. From main Cebu Island, or the mainland. When someone from Olango or Bantayan refers to a person from Cebu Island as taga isla sa Cebu, it can indeed feel a bit off to the person from Cebu Island. Why? Because Cebu is the center. Cebu Island, especially Metro Cebu, is often seen as the regional center, the hub of commerce, education, and larger population. It's the big city or mainland in their mental map, even if it's technically an island. Relativity of islander. Being an islander often carries connotations of being from a smaller, possibly more remote or less developed place in the popular imagination. While this isn't always true, the perception exists. For someone from the bustling urban center of Cebu City, being called an islander by someone from a smaller island might feel like being put in the same category as someone from a very remote, isolated place, which doesn't align with their self-perception as being from a major metropolitan area. They might see themselves as simply Cebuanos from the mainland rather than islanders. Hierarchy of place. There's an unspoken hierarchy of place. The people from the perceived bigger or more central landmass generally don't embrace a label that might associate them with the smaller or peripheral landmasses, especially if they are the dominant population or economic force in the region. 3. Conclusion. Definitions are not always universally applied in practice. You've hit the nail on the head. The definitions of an island are not always generally applicable to all in common usage, particularly when it comes to social identity. While a geographer will call Cebu an island, a local from Cebu City will likely refer to it as, quote, or the province, reserving isla for smaller, distinct landmasses. And yes, the term islander carries social weight and is often resisted by those from larger, more central islands when spoken by someone from a smaller, less central one. It's a fascinating example of how language and identity intertwine with geographical reality.